Are you looking for a new 2-player board game? Or are you looking for that perfect game for date night? Today, we're going to be taking a look at our top 10 best board games for couples that you should definitely check out. Now, there are dozens of great 2-player board games out there. We're going to be looking at 10 games that are easy to dive into, rules light, and play in 30 minutes or less. We know that everyone has their own play styles, which is why my partner and I have included both competitive and cooperative games in this list, which you can find marked in the timestamps down below. I've also added a couple of honorable mentions to this list if you have more flexibility with your time, or if you just want to make an afternoon or evening playing games. With that said, let's dive in and take a look. Who says romance can't involve a little friendly competition? Let's take a look at some games that allow you and your significant other to strategize and plot against one another on opposing sides. Which one of you is the slyest fox in the forest? The Fox in the Forest is a head-to-head trick-taking card game. Similar to a regular deck of cards, each one has a number and suit. Some cards, however, have a special rule written on it that can spice up your turns and add an additional element of strategy. Cards are shuffled, and both players are dealt a set amount of cards. Players need to win a certain number of tricks to gain a specific number of points in each round. The first player plays a card face up, and your opponent must play a card of the matching suit. If they don't have it, or they play a card of a lower value than yours, you win the round. If they play a higher number in the matching suit, they win. Certain cards will have certain abilities that can add or break rules. The player that won the previous trick will start the next one. The round ends when both players run out of cards in their hands. Now, you don't want to get too greedy. Ironically, if you win too many tricks, you won't get as many points. The Fox in the Forest is a lovely 2-player game that, while competitive, is still fairly lighthearted. If you are familiar with other trick-taking games such as euchre, hearts, or spades, then you'll find that these special variabilities or these special powers that some of these cards have will add some interesting moves and strategy to the gameplay, which makes the Fox in the Forest worth checking out. Get your poker faces ready. This vibrantly illustrated card game has high tension and competitive critters at war. Air, Land, and Sea Critters at War is a card game where you are critters vying for control over 3 different theaters of war. To win the game, you must be the first to get 12 points. How do you gain points, you might ask? Well, on your turn, you play a card face up to one of the matching theaters, or face down in a theater of your choice. Once you and your opponent have played all of your cards, the round ends, and the card values in each theater is calculated and compared. Players can also choose to withdraw for strategic purposes, ending the round and denying their opponent of any points. Well, of some points. What makes this game so tense is that you know each other's cards. What you don't know is how your opponent is going to play them. If you're the pair that likes to put all of your cards on the table, this one is for you. Landscaping never looks so good. Landscaping never looks so good. Floriferous is an elegant and relaxing game that still blooms with competitive interactions. Players take turns walking through the garden and picking up cards representing the different flowers and arrangements you would like in your personal garden. Each type of card will help you develop a strategy and award you points towards winning the game. Players take turns strolling through the garden and picking up cards. Once everyone makes it to the end of the garden, the round is over and all players check to see if they meet any of the bounties, which also go towards scoring points. Players then repeat this for 2 or more rounds, after which they add up their score and the player with the highest number of points wins. There are other details to the rules, such as winning a cup of tea for collecting the most stones, but I'll leave that for you to discover. Floriferous has the perfect pairing of artwork and various strategic pathways. It is super enjoyable, and the pacing just makes it as relaxing or as tense as it is relaxing. What do you get when you combine dice, thrones, and Marvel superheroes? Fans of Yahtzee and dice rolling will really enjoy this next one. Marvel Dice Throne is a head-to-head card and dice game with high tension and awesome abilities that leave you feeling as powerful as the heroes you are playing as. The main objective is to reduce your opponent's health all the way down to 0, which is what couples do, right? There are 2 main resources in the game: health points and combat points. Health points are your life. You must protect them at all costs. Combat points are what you use to upgrade your abilities and play cards that can help you in the game. The main flow of the game goes like this: choose a card from your hand to play, or discard it for more combat points. Next, you attack your opponent by rolling some dice. Then your opponent rolls to defend. Finally, you work out how much damage was dealt, and it's now your opponent's turn. There's a bit more to it, but you get the gist. Each hero plays differently and pretty thematically, if I might add. Black Panther can absorb the hits received and dish them right back. Loki has various tricks and illusions up his sleeves. Scarlet Witch has all sorts of chaos magic and reality-bending spells at her disposal. If you're not a big Marvel fan, there is the original version of the game where you play as various other mystical and fantastical characters. The rules are the same, just the characters and the abilities are a little bit different. Which one of you can pull off a better heist? Keeper Europe is a tug-of-war style board game where you each play as criminal masterminds, assembling and deploying your crew to steal famous artifacts and works of art from the most iconic and world-renowned museums and galleries. This game is played over rounds of card drafting, alternating between drafting crew members and gear. Each player will start a round with a hand of cards. You each select one to play, pay any costs, and gain any benefits listed on the card. And then, you trade hands. Crew members are assigned to the different locations, and gear cards are assigned to the different crew members. Each crew member and piece of gear will have different abilities that allow you to steal different types of items, gain coins, shift player control to a location, or even interfere with your opponent. After 6 rounds, the player with the most points wins the game. Keeper Europe is a great 2-player game with an interesting heist theme. And if you're familiar with games such as Sushi Go or 7 Wonders, you'll have no trouble diving into this one. If you enjoy working as a team or solving puzzles together, these cooperative games are worth looking into. The first cooperative game will be from an IP that you might be familiar with. Codenames Duet, like its older sibling, is a word association game where players take turns giving one-word clues, while the other tries to link them to a grid of words in front of them. Instead of working against each other separately, both players will work cooperatively to guess a certain amount of words before a certain amount of rounds. Similar to the original game, players share a card that identifies random grid locations corresponding to the words in the current layout. This differs from the original Codenames in that there is only one color on each card, green instead of blue and red. The game ends when either both players correctly guess all of the clues, when the players run out of rounds, or if someone selects the one square in the grid that is the assassin, which is the one card you're both trying to avoid. If you enjoyed the original Codenames, and you'd like to see if you and your partner are on both the same frequency when it comes to word associations, Codenames Duet will be your jam. This next game requires the use of precise communication, and also has a little bit more chaos. In Kites, you and your teammate will navigate storms, airplanes, and crossed wires in real time. The gameplay is straightforward. On your turn, you play a card from your hand, flip the sand timers corresponding to the card, and then draw a new card. The goal is to continue these actions until all of the cards in the deck and in your hands have been played before all of the sand timers run out. To make things interesting, you could throw in the storm, airplane, or crossed wire cards. Kites is super quick to set up and play. It's super frantic and super chaotic. If you're looking for a game that is time sensitive and uses precise communication, this one is for you. Are you a fan of solitaire? How about a game of solitaire where you're completely guessing the cards that you're playing? In Hanabi, you are working together to create fireworks or a fireworks display by playing cards of matching suits from your hand in ascending order. Sounds simple, right? On your turn, you can play a card from your hand, discard a card, or give a clue to your partner as to what's in their hand. How would you know what's in your partner's hand? Well, both players are holding their cards so that they're facing away from them. Now, the clues that you give your partner can only relate to the color or number, but not both. Hanabi isn't for the faint of heart. One wrong move, and boom goes the dynamite. If you end up playing a card where it shouldn't go, you start a fuse to a hidden pile of black powder, and it's a fuse that only shortens with each incorrect card you play. If you make enough mistakes, you cause an explosion, ending the game. If you like the sound of a colorful memory game, Hanabi is the one for you. The island is sinking, and you need to collect all of the artifacts before time runs out. In Forbidden Island, players take turns moving orthogonally to navigate rising waters and must work together to make it off of the Forbidden Island. Before they do, however, they need to use each of their unique abilities to help them find the 4 legendary artifacts. To find these artifacts, you need to collect a certain number of cards that have matching symbols and then trade them in at a location with that symbol. I guess thematically this represents the knowledge and research that you've gathered. Once all artifacts have been found, you and your partner will have to both make it back to the helipad in order to get a lift off of the island. Keep an eye out on the water level though, because if it gets too high, or if important places on the island sink, the game is lost and you sink down to the abyss. Forbidden Island is one of the few games on this list where you can increase or decrease the difficulty, and there are also added island configurations that increase the variability. For those of you that have played or are familiar with Pandemic, you'll recognize some similar mechanics or systems, and that's because they're both designed by the same creator. Like many of the other games on this list, Forbidden Island is very quick and easy to set up. If this one interests you, Forbidden Island is fun to navigate and it brings out your inner survivor. Do you think you'll be able to predict your partner's fate? This next game is for fans of tarot-style art and of deduction and logic puzzles. The Shipwreck Arcana is a cooperative game built around logic statements and numbers where players silently give clues to each other. At the beginning of a game, both players will draw their fate, or 2 tokens with numerical values that represent their fate. On their turn, a player places one of their fate tokens in front of the Arcana card that best describes their fate. The other player then calls upon the Ancients to help them use the process of elimination to deduce the number on their teammate's remaining fate token. If you're not feeling too confident in your prediction, don't worry, you can wait for more clues. But if you do, and your prediction is correct, you've successfully predicted your partner's fate and move up on the score tracker. If you're wrong, doom draws in closer on you both. Players continue making turns like this until you make 7 correct or 7 incorrect predictions. If you're up for the challenge, you can start the game off with the doom tracker at a higher starting position, or you can play a special variant meant for 2 players specifically that are listed in the rules. If you're a lover of logic games like myself, this one is for you. In our current opinion, those are the 10 best board games for couples that play in 30 minutes or less. With that said, it wouldn't quite feel right to end off a list with our favorite board games for couples without at least mentioning these next 2. Escape Room in a Box. Need I say more? Unlock is a series of board games with different themed hour-long escape room puzzles. This is also probably one of the best games I've seen when it comes to teaching the game. You don't even need the rulebook. Within each box, you'll find decks of cards for each puzzle, along with a small deck of cards for a tutorial playthrough. I highly recommend going through the tutorial at least once, as it will go over everything you need to know to play the game. Now, the game requires an app that you can download onto any device, and it does an amazing job at setting the tone for a more immersive escape room experience. Now, you can play this with 2 or with a group of people. There's a recommended player count for each game. Now, the Unlock series does an amazing job at providing the escape room experience for you at home. And at the time of this recording, there are at least 40 different scenarios for you to choose from. One of my favorite things about this game is that it's completely non-destructive like some of the other escape room games out there. So when you're finished, you can just pass it along to a friend so that they can enjoy it. And then when they're finished, they can pass it along to someone else, and so on. Now, my final recommendation is for those of you that love a good murder mystery, especially one where you're racing to solve a murder against the great Sherlock Holmes. The game is afoot. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective is a series of games. Each one contains 10 mysteries, mostly murders for you to solve. The one that I'll be showing you today is the first in the series, and it's called The Thames Murders and Other Cases. Each case will start off with a narrative that will give you starting clues and loose threads to follow and pull at, which will eventually lead you to various places across London. There are even newspapers for you to sift through that can provide invaluable information, if you can find it. You will gather evidence, interrogate potential witnesses and suspects, and explore crime scenes. As you play, you may also uncover some hidden secrets and other dealings happening in the background. Watch out for red herrings. You'll visit various locations across the city depending on where your leads take you. And you may also talk to experts in certain fields, even Sherlock Holmes himself, if you need assistance. Be mindful that not all leads help out with the case that you're currently trying to solve, and you need to solve them fast. The goal of the game is to solve the case, but to make it extra challenging, the designers have added a way to check how well you solved it. And there's no better way to score a fictitious murder mystery other than against the wit and powerful deduction of Sherlock Holmes. My girlfriend and I have spent afternoons and evenings trying to solve some of these cases, pacing around rooms, creating suspect lists, trying to connect the dots and creating different stories to help you identify the motives, the whole shebang. If you want to spend the day solving a murder or crime with your partner, you'll find one no finer. Let me know in the comments what 2-player games are your favorite. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and maybe even checking out other videos on this channel. As always, thank you for joining me here on Everything Dice. Take care.